All around the world, there are artists who do not just paint or sculpt. They invent an entirely new way of seeing. Some carve human faces straight out of solid walls. Some build enormous sculptures out of thousands of everyday objects. Some paint dreams that seem to move, even while standing perfectly still. None of them work quite like anyone else on the entire planet. What makes these artists so extraordinary is not just talent, but imagination pushed to its absolute limit. They use materials nobody else would ever think to touch and turn ordinary things, paper, string, dust, even empty air, into something you have never seen before in your life. Once you see their work, you never forget it. In this journey, we meet 11 of the most visually unique artists working today. Each one sees the world differently, and each one has found a way to make that vision impossible to ignore. Get ready to look at art in a whole new way and never see an ordinary wall the same way again. Gregory Crewdson. Somewhere in America, there is a photographer who does not simply take a picture. He builds an entire world first, like a movie director, but everything he builds ends in just one single photograph. He picks a quiet street or a small house at night and turns it into something that feels like a dream. The neighborhoods in his pictures are ordinary, the kind you might drive past without noticing. But a strange glowing light makes everything feel like it is holding a secret nobody has told us yet, a story frozen in the middle of happening, right at its most tense and quiet moment. To make just one photograph, this artist uses giant lights, dozens of helpers, and sometimes even fire trucks to fill the street with fog. It can take an entire day, or even weeks, just to prepare a single shot. Nothing you see is an accident. Every lamp, every shadow, every drop of rain on the ground has been placed there on purpose, the way a film crew would build a scene for a movie that never actually gets filmed, only captured in one perfect frozen frame that has to say everything at once. When people look at these photographs, they feel like they have walked into the middle of a story, but no one ever tells them what happens next or what happened before. That mystery is exactly the point. This artist proves that one still, silent picture can feel bigger and more dramatic than an entire film, which is why nobody else makes photographs quite like his, turning quiet, ordinary places into scenes that feel like they belong on a giant cinema screen, glowing softly in the dark. James Jean. Imagine a picture that looks like it is still moving, even though it is standing completely still. That is the strange magic of this artist's work. His paintings flow like water, full of curling lines, floating creatures, and colors that blend into one another so smoothly, it is hard to tell where one shape ends and another begins. Looking at one of his pictures feels a little like stepping into someone else's dream, one that keeps quietly unfolding the longer and longer you sit and look at it. This artist mixes ideas from very different worlds. He borrows the bold lines of comic books, the elegance of old paintings, and the flowing patterns found in nature like waves, smoke, and vines. Then he weaves them all together into one single, seamless image that feels like it was always meant to exist. He often built his pictures slowly, layer by layer, so tiny details hide inside bigger shapes, waiting for a careful eye to find them, almost like a puzzle folded quietly inside a much larger, more complicated picture. What makes this artist so visually unusual is that his work feels like it belongs to no single style at all. It is not quite a comic, not quite a classical painting, and not quite a fantasy illustration, yet somehow it is all three at once. That is why people all over the world recognize his flowing, dreamlike style the moment they see it, even before they know his name. And why his pictures feel equally at home in a gallery, on a magazine cover, or on the wall of a museum somewhere far away. Marc Quinn. What does it really mean to be human? That is the question one British sculptor has spent his whole career trying to answer, and he does it in the most unusual ways imaginable. Instead of only using clay, stone, or bronze like traditional sculptors, he reaches for materials nobody expects, turning ordinary or surprising substances into powerful, thought-provoking shapes that make people stop, stare, and think about their own bodies in a completely new and unexpected way, every single time. This artist is famous for using materials connected to the human body itself, exploring ideas about beauty, fragility, and time passing. One sculpture might be carved from smooth white marble, while another is cast in solid, gleaming bronze, or shaped from something soft and fragile that will not last forever without special care and attention. By mixing permanent materials with delicate changing ones, he reminds us that even the strongest, most solid-looking things in the world can be temporary and fragile underneath their surface. His sculptures often look calm and beautiful from far away, but get closer and you realize they are asking big questions about life, identity, and what our bodies really are underneath the surface. That mix of beauty and deep thinking is what makes his sculptures instantly recognizable and completely unlike anyone else working in stone, bronze, or unusual materials in the art world today, anywhere on Earth, from London to Tokyo. Os Gemeos. In the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, two identical twin brothers grew up loving graffiti, hip-hop music, and the colorful streets around them. Today, those same brothers paint some of the largest and most joyful murals on the entire planet. Their paintings are covered in bright yellow figures, playful patterns, and characters that seem to be pulled straight out of a colorful dream about everyday Brazilian life, folklore, music, and childhood memory, all mixed together at once. What makes these two artists so unusual is that they work as if they share one single mind. They paint together on the same huge wall, often without even talking about what comes next, and somehow the picture comes out looking seamless, like it was painted by one giant hand instead of two separate brothers working side by side. Their murals stretch across entire buildings, turning plain, ordinary city walls into enormous, glowing storybooks that tower high over the streets and the people walking below them. Their work blends fantasy, folklore, and everyday street life into scenes that feel both playful and mysterious at the same time. Because they paint together in one shared style on such a massive scale, their art is impossible to mistake for anyone else's work anywhere in the world. Wherever their murals appear, they turn ordinary city blocks into something people happily travel across the entire world just to see with their own eyes, then remember for years. Swoon. Long before street art hung in fancy galleries, one artist was already quietly changing how people saw the walls of their own city. Using nothing more than paper, ink, and a paintbrush, she cuts incredibly delicate portraits of ordinary people, strangers, neighbors, and family members, and pastes them onto walls in cities all around the world, using nothing fancier than simple wallpaper paste, patience, and a steady hand. Her paper portraits are cut with astonishing, patient detail, sometimes taking days of careful, quiet cutting to finish just one single face. Because they are made of paper glued onto brick or concrete, rain, wind, and sunlight slowly wear them away over time, piece by piece, week by week. Rather than fighting against this natural fading, she welcomes it fully, letting her art fade, peel, and change on its own, almost like the wall itself is slowly breathing and aging right alongside it, season after season. This makes her work completely different from most street art, which is usually made to last as long as physically possible. Her portraits are gentle, temporary, and deeply human, celebrating everyday people instead of famous faces or bold, shouting slogans. Watching her work slowly disappear over months and years is part of the art itself, and that quiet, graceful acceptance of change is something almost no other artist embraces so fully, so calmly, or so openly. Tara Donovan. Picture a giant glowing cloud or a rolling ocean wave built entirely out of thousands and thousands of everyday objects you might find in a drawer at home. That is the extraordinary world created by this American sculptor who takes the most ordinary, mass-produced materials imaginable and transforms them into breathtaking, natural-looking forms that seem almost impossible to have been made by patient, careful human hands working slowly. This artist never uses paint or clay. Instead, she works with objects like plastic drinking straws, buttons, tape, or paper cups, using enormous quantities of the very same object, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pieces, stacked, piled, or connected together without any glue at all holding them in place. From far away, the finished sculpture might look like a soft cloud, a swarm of insects, or a wave rolling gently in from the sea toward the shore. It is only when you step closer that you realize the beautiful organic shape in front of you is actually built from thousands of identical, cheap, everyday objects anyone could buy at a nearby shop. That surprising twist, turning boring, ordinary materials into something that looks like it grew quietly in nature, is exactly what makes her sculptures so visually unlike anything else you will find anywhere in the art world today, or ever have before. Trenton Doyle, Hancock. Since he was a child, this American artist has been building an entire imaginary universe filled with strange creatures, heroic battles, and colorful characters that only exist inside his paintings. Unlike most painters who create separate, unrelated pictures, his artworks all connect together like chapters in one giant, ongoing story that he has been writing and drawing for decades, ever since he was a young boy quietly dreaming up entire worlds. His paintings burst with bright colors, thick paint, patterns, and cut-out shapes layered on top of each other, mixing cartoon-style drawing with serious, thoughtful painting techniques most people would never expect to see combined in one place. Text and comic-style storytelling often appear alongside the images, so his artworks feel like a cross between a museum painting and a page ripped straight out of a wild, fantastical comic book that nobody else could ever quite invent. What makes his work so visually unique is that every single piece belongs to the same enormous, invented mythology, filled with heroes, monsters, and moral lessons he has been building since childhood, piece by piece, year by year. Very few artists create not just individual pictures, but an entire imaginary world that keeps expanding painting after painting, year after year, decade after decade, without ever once slowing down or running out of ideas. Vhils. Most street artists add paint to a wall. This Portuguese artist does the exact opposite. He takes material away instead, using tools like drills, chisels, and even small controlled explosions. He carves enormous human portraits directly into the surface of old walls, revealing hidden layers of plaster, brick, and paint underneath, layers that have quietly been buried there for many, many years, unseen by anyone. Working on the sides of crumbling buildings, this artist studies each wall very carefully first, noticing its cracks, its old paint colors, and its many layers of history before deciding exactly where to begin carving into the surface. As he chips away material bit by bit, a human face slowly emerges from the rubble and dust, like the wall itself always had a portrait hidden inside it somewhere, just waiting patiently to be uncovered by someone brave and skilled enough to look. Because his portraits are carved rather than painted, they carry the actual scars and history of the building itself, making every single piece impossible to copy or repeat anywhere else on Earth, ever again. This destructive, sculptural approach to portraiture has never really been done at this scale before, which is why his walls feel less like ordinary street art and more like ancient ruins that have just been rediscovered by pure accident. Muniz. What if a picture of a face could be made entirely out of chocolate syrup, or a landscape could be built from sugar, thread, or garbage collected off the street corner? That is the playful, surprising world of this Brazilian artist, who recreates familiar kinds of images using materials nobody would ever expect to find sitting inside an ordinary art studio, let alone hanging framed on a gallery wall somewhere. This artist carefully arranges his chosen material, whether it is sugar, dust, trash, string, or even tiny toy soldiers, into a large, detailed picture laid out on the ground or across a table. Once the arrangement looks exactly right, down to the smallest detail, he photographs it from high above, often from a ladder or a crane. The final artwork you see hanging on a wall is actually a photograph of a temporary picture made from something completely unexpected and ordinary. This clever two-step process means his art exists on two different levels at once: the strange, temporary sculpture made of humble, everyday material, and the polished photograph that preserves it forever, long after the original arrangement has been swept away and forgotten completely. That surprising combination of humble materials and skillful photography is something almost no other artist in the entire world does quite the same way, or as playfully. Sarah C. Imagine walking into a room and finding what looks like an entire miniature universe spilling across the walls, ceiling, and floor, built from everyday things like string, paper clips, bottle caps, and tiny lights. That overwhelming, delicate experience is exactly what this American sculptor creates, turning ordinary household clutter into sprawling, breathtaking installations that seem to quietly defy gravity itself at every single turn. Rather than carving one single solid object, this artist builds enormous, spreading networks out of hundreds of small, ordinary objects, connecting them piece by piece until they seem to grow like a living thing across an entire room, spilling out in every direction imaginable. Nothing feels heavy or solid. Instead, everything looks impossibly light, balanced, and fragile, as though the whole sprawling structure might float gently away into the air at any moment. Because her installations are so vast, delicate, and made from such humble materials, no two people ever experience them quite the same way, depending on where they stand or what small detail catches their eye first as they walk through. That sense of endless tiny detail spread across a massive space is what makes her work feel completely unlike traditional sculpture and utterly unforgettable to walk slowly and quietly through. Rachel, Whiteread. Most sculptors build a shape out of something solid. This artist does the opposite. She looks at empty, invisible spaces, like the air inside a room, a doorway, or underneath a chair, and turns that emptiness into a solid object. It sounds almost impossible, but that strange, simple idea is exactly what has made her one of the most original sculptors working anywhere in the world today, and also one of the most quietly puzzling to first understand. To create her work, this artist pours materials like plaster, concrete, or resin into or around ordinary spaces and waits patiently for it to harden. When the surrounding structure is finally removed, what is left behind is a solid, ghostly copy of empty space itself. Something that used to be nothing at all, now sitting in front of you as something real, heavy, and permanent. The results are quiet, pale, and strangely emotional to stand near, almost like touching solid shadows frozen in place. Because she sculpts the invisible instead of the visible, her work asks us to notice the empty spaces we usually never think about at all in our daily lives. A shadow, a gap, a silence, all turned into solid, lasting form you can actually walk around and touch. That simple, quiet idea has never really been done the same way by anyone else, which is exactly why her sculptures feel so unforgettable once you truly understand what you are actually looking at.